Some miracles recorded in the Bible and attributed to God may, at first reading, seem cruel or contradictory to the idea of a benevolent God. The flood of Noah, for example, doesn't seem to correspond with the idea of a God of love. But we must remember that love is not God's only attribute. He is also righteous and just. Because God is righteous, he cannot abide evil. It's a good thing for evil to be punished, and its appropriate punishment is death, the wages of sin. To punish evil appropriately is a good thing and is called justice. Thus, the flood is not the act of a cruel God, but a righteous, just God, who loves us so much that he revealed to us a plan of salvation that could satisfy his righteousness, while also justly punishing the evil we have done. Noah embraced the promises of God, but no one else did, which resulted in their righteous judgment and destruction. The Bible also records miracles and signs that weren't done by God or his prophets, but by those who rejected him or acted against him. For example, we find this in Exodus 6:11 and 12, when Pharaoh's magicians matched the miracles of Moses and Aaron step for step. In the New Testament, we see this in a number of places as well. Acts 16:16 through 24 records a non-Christian girl's ability to foretell the future. And Revelation tells of the second beast who will perform many signs in Revelation 13:11 through 14. A number of things must be taken into account when considering these miracles. First, in every case, the God of the Bible is denied and a false gospel is proclaimed. Second, their purposes are not benevolent but self-serving. In the case of Pharaoh's magicians, it was the retention of valuable slaves and the refusal of Pharaoh to acknowledge a power higher than himself. The girl who divined the future did so to make money for her keepers, and the beast of Revelation is attempting to usurp the place rightfully held by God himself. Third, in each case, God responds to these miracles with a demonstration of his power that proves his position of ultimate authority over these lesser powers. Not only did Aaron's staff and snake eat the others who copied him, but God followed the incident by sending the 10 plagues of judgment, an undeniable display of power that resulted in Israel's freedom. The fortune teller of Acts had the spirit which gave her the power exercised by Paul, and the beast of Revelation proves to be no match for the God of the universe. The miracles of God proclaim him to be Lord over all things, unbelieving thought included. Fourth, the power to do these signs and wonders is not denied by Scripture, but at the same time the power is not supernatural. The Bible speaks of a class of beings that are spirits not subject to what we call natural laws. These are angels and fallen angels, or demons. They are capable of things that appear miraculous to humans, but are natural to them. When an angel does something, however, the source of the miracle is supernatural since it is done at the direction of God. But a demon does these things for reasons meant to take away attention from God. As created beings, the demon's power is not supernatural, but supernormal. They may act outside of what is normal to us, but not outside what is normal to them. They're not transcendent from the world they manipulate and do not act on the direction of such a being. Thus, when we see signs and wonders in the Bible performed by those who deny the God proclaimed by the Bible, we may characterize them as false miracles. They're not false in the sense that they're not marvelous works, but in the sense that they reveal blasphemy and promote unbelief through deceit of the nature of their power. The difficulty of making the claim that miracles authenticate the Bible, and therefore Christianity, is that almost all religions point to miracles to authenticate their scriptures and their view of God. But if each religion claims miracles as a method of authentication, then don't the miracles cancel each other out and ultimately prove nothing? In order to answer this question, we must look at the miracles of other religions. If they present the same characteristics as the biblical miracles, then miracles don't authenticate anything and are nothing more than entertaining stories. However, if the miracles of other religions are substantially different in nature from the biblical miracles, then the Bible may not be so easily dismissed. There are several schools of Buddhist thought, each with its own tradition of scripture. The Dhammapada is among the earliest of these traditions and contains the sayings of the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. The Dhammapada is divided into 26 chapters and contains 423 verses. These verses are accompanied by stories intended to illuminate and explain them. Whether these stories are myth or history is apparently somewhat debated among Buddhist scholars. A good example of a Buddhist miracle is found in Chapter 25, Section 12 of the Dhammapada stories, illustrating verse 382. It tells of a young Buddhist monk who, because of his good karma, gained supernormal powers. The monk flew to a faraway lake to fetch some water. Later, the monk was brought before the Buddha. The Buddha wished for his disciples to observe the young monk's rare qualities, and so asked the monk to bring some water from the same faraway lake. Again, the young monk flew through the air to retrieve the water. The other monks witnessed this miracle and reported it to the Buddha. Monks, one who practices the Dhamma zealously, is capable of attaining supernormal powers even though he is young. The miracle is attributed to the individual performing the miracle. The purpose of the miracle is to demonstrate that anyone who has the discipline to practice Dhamma can attain supernormal powers, a rather selfish endeavor, and that the Dhamma leads to self-enlightenment, also a selfish endeavor. Although the character of the miracle in the first trip for water is good, in the second instance it's frivolous. Thus, the miracles found in Buddhism are not like the biblical miracles. They differ in their source, their purpose, and their character. Buddhist miracles focus on the aggrandizement of the individual, while biblical miracles glorify a benevolent, transcendent, powerful God. In Hinduism, part of the Hindu scriptures is called the Puranas. In the Puranas 255, we read, "Once Narad and Parvat were traveling through an aerial route. While they were flying over the Kandav forest, they were lured by the beautiful sight of the river Yamuna. They decided to take rest for a while. Both of them descended down and entered River Yamuna to take their bath." Other powers are mentioned in the Puranas 17:1-7 and include knowledge of past, present, and future events, the ability to hear abnormal sounds, the ability to make whatever one says come true, and seeing the invisible. The source of these miraculous powers comes from the individuals involved. The purpose of the power is self-serving or self-aggrandizing. The character of these miraculous powers is not inherently good. Interestingly, a famous Hindu miracle happened in our own time. On September 21, 1995, a miracle began in New Delhi and quickly spread around the globe. Apparently, a man dreamed that the Lord Ganesha, a Hindu god who was portrayed in the form of an elephant, desired milk. The man went at once to the temple, not even waiting for daybreak, and convinced the priest to allow a spoonful of milk to be offered to the stone statue. As both men watched, the milk was consumed by the statue. It continued to accept offerings of milk for the rest of that day. By that time, word of the miracle had not only brought New Delhi to a standstill as people dropped whatever they were doing to make milk offerings, but all of India flocked to the temples. Offerings of milk were accepted by statues of other gods as well, not just Ganesha. Also, the statues varied in material. Some were stone, some were copper. Then, 24 hours after it began, the miracles in India stopped. Throughout the next several days, the miracle was repeated around the globe in places such as New York, Los Angeles, and Canada. In this miracle, we see the source of the miracle attributed to one or more god in Hindu's pantheon. The purpose of the miracle is unknown, and no good resulted from the miracle, except for those who sold milk. Because Hinduism teaches that God is ultimately impersonal, miracles can have no purpose, and no message can be conveyed through a prophet or any other way. Also, the miracles found in Hinduism do not display a benevolent character. Rather, Hindu miracles are self-aggrandizing, magnifying the doer of the miracle instead of a God who wishes to make himself known and bring about good. Ultimately, Hindu miracles are meaningless and lack goodness.